Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Christian Recorder Dialogues. We are indeed excited to have a wonderful guest with us today, all the way from Los Angeles. As you can tell, I'm still getting over a cold. So, without further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Ms. Capri Maddox and Reverend Jasmine Brooks for our discussion today on human rights, Los Angeles, and what it means to us to have these focuses. I met Ms. Maddox in the 5th District at the planning meeting, and we are excited that she is here to share with her home church. She's big news in Los Angeles, but we are excited to give her due today with us at the Christian Recorder. So, Ms. Maddox, welcome. Reverend Brooks, thank you for doing this interview, and I'm going to get out of y'all's way so y'all can talk while I still have a voice. So, thank you, and again, welcome to the Christian Recorder Dialogues.
Thank you, John. And good afternoon, Attorney Maddox. Glad to have you.
It's truly an honor to be here with you, Reverend Brooks. I'm delighted to share space with you and TCR for this moment, for such a time as this.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right in. We're not going to take too much of your time. I am excited about the work that you are doing. I've read up on you and your background, and I'm even more excited to call you family because you are a part of the AME Church home team. So, if you could just share with us a little bit about your roots in the AME Church and your faith and how that relationship has impacted the work that you now do in the community.
Well, I really appreciate that question, Reverend Brooks, and been a Christian for my entire life. I was saved, gave my heart to the Lord at a church with my grandmother around Christmas time in. I'm not going to say what year, but I was about 7 years old or so, and of course, I was raised Catholic and came into the AME Church after touching a number of faith-based entities in the Christian faith. But I think it's important to know that I worked with the AME Church in the 90s, even when we had, right after we had the unrest of 1992 here in Los Angeles. And I think it's important to know that when you look at being of service, First AME has been the pillar of the African American community and the civic community for many, many years. So I was a volunteer that came to do some lock-ins where the kids come to the church and spend the night and learn about personal responsibility and how to make a difference and how to give back, all the while having good food, lots of fun, and a little bit of instruction as well. And quite frankly, as a mother of a teenager, they also had a chance for the parents to have a night off. But I was a volunteer in that space and would often go to First AME for major community events over the years. And I was a member of another church at the time, and I was actually a member of Foursquare Church at the time. And I think it's important to know that years later, maybe a decade later, I fell in love with a longtime First AME member, my wonderful husband of 21 years, Capri Maddox. And I found myself not only as a volunteer that would occasionally drop in, but became my home church. And so I'm very, very delighted to be a part of what they're doing at First AME. It's truly an honor. And just even speaking of faith, my faith is something that is important to me, and to really think about a place where the motto is first to serve meant so much to me. Some people know my story. I've actually been a guest minister at First AME, and folks know that 5 families took me in to really keep me from being a part of the foster care system here in Los Angeles. I lived with both my grandmothers growing up, and spent time living with both of my parents off and on. But I want to let people know that God being in my life is something that, changed my life and changed the trajectory of my life. And, part of what I find is that being first to serve is my way of giving back, to say, thank you to the people I can't pay back, but I can pay it forward. And public service is really how I do it.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing some of your background and some of your beginnings. So, with that being said, can you tell us about what motivated you to be involved in public service and in the public sphere? Because it sounds like that's not only a central theme for your personal life, but it's also what brought you to the AME Church and got you connected there. And it's the work that you continue to do. So, can you talk about some of the underlying motivations for your involvement in public service?
Yes. So, of course, when you find yourself in crisis, as I did in many ways, I saw people in public service as, really making a difference. And my heart was especially touched when I showed up at Cal State LA, my beloved, one of my beloved alma maters, and had the ability to make contact with David Sandoval, who runs the EOP program, who ran the EOP program there during that time. Being able to see a child in crisis, didn't have resources, showed up there with 2 suitcases of everything I own, no stable housing, and he picked up the phone and said, she's going to be enrolled. And I know there's no money on the books right now, but this is happening. And he also picked up the phone again and called down to student housing and says, no, there's no record of her. She'll be down there in an hour. And that's what's happening again. And we will sort this out later on, but I need you to do this right now. And to have someone have the power to really, do that, and to really, make a difference in someone's life with just a mere phone call, was something that I thought, this is amazing. And public service was something that I really wanted to do, because I knew that there were lots of things that people were struggling with, and to understand what it's like to need help, and to think of where I could make the greatest impact. And so public service has been a part of that. And I've had the privilege of being appointed by 5 public officials over my career. Namely, now I have the privilege of working for Mayor Karen Bass. I've worked for Mayor Villaraigosa, a city attorney, a superintendent, and thinking about all of, and the previous mayor as well, Mayor Garcetti, that the previous mayor before Mayor Bass. And I think it's important to know that in all the roles that I've had, it's essential to understand that making a difference is the core component, and really being intentional to, lift those that need a lift, because we've all needed a lift. If we're honest with ourselves, all of us have needed a lift in their lives, in our lives.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I know I can attest to that same thing. And I'm glad that you had someone who was willing to put their name on the line for you, and to offer you an opportunity. I think for a lot of us, our beginnings are because someone was willing to take the risk, and someone was willing to call our names, and someone was willing to support us along that journey. And so I'm grateful that you found that someone who got you started on your journey, and now we're all made the better for the work that you do. So thank you for that. So for those who are not familiar with Attorney Maddox, she is currently serving as the inaugural executive director and general manager of the Los Angeles Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department in Los Angeles, California. And so if you don't mind, I would like for you to just share a little bit with us about the Los Angeles Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department, the work that you all do there, some of the aims and goals, and the relationship that you all are currently fostering with the community.
Right. I love the work that we are doing. We're lifting a better Los Angeles. We are, Reverend Brooks, you should know that we are intentional to make sure that there is no wrong door to fighting hate and discrimination. Of course, I have lived experiences of dealing with hate and discrimination in America. And of course, many of us have seen the inequities laid bare from, historic uh, seasons all the way to what we're experiencing in the 2020s here today. I want to let you know that we fight hate and discrimination by having the capacity to bring cases against folks that violate your civil rights in the areas of commerce, education, employment, and housing. These are ways where our communities have been othered and ways that our communities have been wronged over the years. And I understand too that we need to not only fight discriminatory practices on the defensive, but on the offensive by celebrating everyone's culture. So we want to be intentional to celebrate Latino Heritage Month, African American Heritage Month, Jewish Heritage Month, Muslim Heritage Month, etc. We want to be a Women's History Month. I could go on and on and on, but to uplift these communities. And we also have an award-winning campaign known as LA is for Everyone. I don't have so much, but it's a campaign that says LA is for everyone. It's my little notebook here. The campaign is an award-winning campaign where we blanketed bus stops and sanitation vehicles and even took over electronic billboards on the sides of freeways, et cetera, to send a message that Los Angeles is truly for everyone. It's a campaign in 21 languages, including sign language. And I want to tell you that the work that we've done here, 1,000 community meetings, over 700 complaints on discrimination, and then also to let folks know that we are giving back to the community on the equity side by writing policy papers to expose inequities that are happening in government, like how government responds to various communities with resources. The other thing that I think is important to share is that we are providing resources to community-based organizations. Helping the people that help the people is something that's important to us. So we have about $12 million that is on the streets that will touch, actually $10 million that will be on the streets of Los Angeles to provide resources to help the people who help the people. And those are our community-based organizations with participatory budgeting, meaning the community can vote for how dollars need to be spent based on the needs of a community. Some communities need after school care, and other communities may need a garden or a green space. We have other communities that may need legal assistance to support tenants. So whatever a community needs is how we're able to spend this approximate $10 million to make a difference in the lives of LA residents. So we fight hate and discrimination and inequities on all fronts. The one other program that I really like to highlight is upward mobility programming, where we help people get into the middle class and beyond, college and career readiness, financial literacy, how to become a homeowner, how to become an entrepreneur, are things that we do, how to get into law school, how to get into medical school. So we are intentional to make sure that we fight things, the inequities, the injustices on all fronts. And there's no wrong door when you think about solution-based, proven, effective work in these spaces.
I love that. I love the idea of governmental organizations and governmental tools and resources being funneled through grassroots organizations who are on the ground doing the work to help support the people. So I'm grateful for the work that you're doing and excited about learning and hearing more about those things. In this moment, we're going to take a quick break to hear a commercial advertisement for Cooper for Bishop, and we'll come right back in just a moment.
And so part of what I am inviting people to do as we go in this campaign I invite them to become a part of the Cooper experience, because you want to know that the person that would be a bishop has sufficient experience and understanding and knowledge of the denomination and its workings and its ways, that they can serve well, serve the people well, serve the denomination well, as a bishop in the church. And so I'm asking people to become a part of the Cooper experience, because I believe it is the kind of experience you can trust. You can trust me to do well, be well, and administer well as one of the bishops of the church. And so I ask you to become a part of the Cooper experience, because it is an experience you can trust.
Welcome back, family. If you're just joining us, we are speaking with attorney Capri Maddox out of Los Angeles, California, who serves as the inaugural executive director and general manager of the Los Angeles Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department. She is doing some wonderful work to serve underserved communities and under-resourced communities, and to break down the barriers for a more equitable experience for minorities and those who have otherwise been locked out of fair housing, education, and economic opportunity. And so we're just talking with her a little bit about that work. So if you're just joining us, make sure that you go back and watch from the beginning so you can get hip to what's going on in Los Angeles through her office and her work. So Attorney Maddox, I want to hear a little bit about the diversity within the offices of Los Angeles. You all currently have several Black women who are involved in high-level positions in municipal government. And so if you could just provide your reflections on what that means to you personally, what that means for those who are coming behind you, and what it means for the community that you all are serving.
Right. So, as I mentioned, I have the privilege of serving as a Mayor Karen Bass appointee, the first African American woman to serve as the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. And we have a number of leaders in Los Angeles. We actually have a council member who's also a part of the First AME family, Heather Hutt. Who is doing amazing work in Los Angeles as an elected official. But it's not just the elected officials. You know, if you want something done, they say give it to a busy person, but we know the cadence and the determination of African American women. We figure things out. Even when we're under resourced, we are resilient. This office space that we sit in is something that I led the construction on for our staff, building an operation from 0 to about 50 employees here in the city of Los Angeles is something that I was proud to do, but I was able to do it because of the inspirational work of other African American women that have come before me, thinking about, again, Mayor Bass. We have a supervisor, Holly Mitchell, who also is very supportive of the First AME family. And of course, Heather Hutt that I mentioned earlier, who is a member, who's like me, a member of First AME Church. And even the non-electeds, we have the head of the personnel department for the city of Los Angeles, as an African-American woman, Dana Brown. The African-American general manager I want to highlight as well is in charge of the zoo. I mean, like the only African-American woman that's in charge of a major metropolitan zoo is Denise Verrett, that's here with us. Finally, I want to wrap. I could go on and on and on, but I want to say that even the person that's in charge of emergency management in the city of Los Angeles, African-American woman, wonderful woman of God, and a true public servant, and Carol Parks. So I want you to know that African-American women are doing great things in the city of Los Angeles, despite our numbers in the city of Los Angeles, our population is about 8%. So it's not like we have high numbers of the population, but when you think about some of the folks that are really leaning in and doing good work to lift a better Los Angeles, African American women are at the table and making strides in so many spaces. One thing I also want to acknowledge and address is that I'm inspired by the next generation of leaders. We have, organizations that are here. We have a group called LAPI, which is a policy group that is grooming the next generation of leaders. Joy Atkinson and others, Angela Reddick, Wright, who is on a nationally syndicated program, KBLA's 1580 AM, that is Tavis Mowry have put together a group of leaders over the last maybe over 15 years, maybe almost 20 years of grooming the next generation of leaders. And now we're starting to see some of these young ladies go off to be elected officials in other spaces and prominent public servants. I want to also give one shout out, since I'm, highlighting some of the African American leaders, is to, think about the fact that I was with LaFonza Butler, who is now our a recent U.S. senator replacing Senator Feinstein. And I think it's important to know LA person, ran a major union here, doing great things. And the last person that I really want to save a moment for is Lola Smallwood Cuevas. She was in charge of the Black Worker Center, and her advocacy actually led to the creation of what is now the Civil Human Rights and Equity Department. For short, we call ourselves LA Civil Rights. And just to know that Lola in 2015 came to City Council and fought to make sure that justice delayed would not be just denied for our community, particularly our workers that were being discriminated against in high numbers, but weren't able to get the legal assistance and support they needed. So Black women actually make a lot of things happen in the city, and literally were the leaders to build and create this department that's serving all of Los Angeles through our various programs of upward mobility programming to hate crime prevention.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. As I was listening to you, one of the thoughts that crossed my mind is the fact that California, though it historically has been one of the more progressive states anyway, right now is one of the more progressive states that people across the nation are watching, particularly as it relates to women's rights, land back, and so on. Yes. What would you name as the source of that progressive work? Would you say that it's related to the several Black women involved in high-level positions in municipal government right now, or is there some combination of things that are happening behind the scenes that you might be able to speak to?
So, first of all, on a spiritual note, Los Angeles is a city of messengers. We are a message city, which is why I think it's important for us to protect what we have here in Los Angeles, because there's a saying, and regardless of where you're from, and by the way, I've lived in Philadelphia, New Jersey, North Carolina, and I know that everyone thinks that their city or their location or their state is a leader, and I think there's plenty of space at the table for many folks to show leadership. But so goes Los Angeles, so goes the world, is how we think here. And I want us to be aware that for sure we're a message city, city of angels. Angels are messengers, right? I want you to know that we on this side need to stand, and I do give credit to the African American women in town. I want to give a big, huge shout out to Stephen Bradford, who is a state elected official that really helped and led the effort, along with Holly Mitchell and Supervisor Hahn to be intentional and make sure that Bruce's Beach was given back to the family. When you think I know you mentioned land back. You should know that we have the Reparations Advisory Commission that's a part of our operation as well. Here we have the City Advisory Reparations Advisory Commission here, and when you think about this work. So goes Los Angeles, so goes the world. And we need to be intentional in these spaces, particularly as people are getting amnesia. When you think about rolling back some of the victories that we won over time, the African American community has experienced this in a significant way. We, I was in Ghana this summer with my husband and son. So, just to be in the rooms literally where my ancestors were held was, powerful. But to think about, what happened, millions of us brought to this country, enslaved for extended period of time. And then finally we get we get our freedom, no money, no resources. And then Jim Crow comes, and then, the civil rights movement, as we know it from the 1960s, is born, and we get voting protections. We get some protections, at least on the books. We get protections in some spaces, but the actual enforcement comes after years and years of lawsuits of discriminatory behaviors that we've experienced, on and on and on. And then, of course, we get, just to fast forward for the sake of conversation, because a lot of people that are watching and listening to this program are familiar with the things that happened in America. But fast forward to the 2020s, we now have another moment where George Floyd is murdered right before our eyes. And it's something that people can't unsee, the hatred and the disregard for African Americans that still exists. Some of the hatred and disregard that we experienced even in slavery. And so to think about us moving forward now, now that we're in 2024, to see some of these things being pulled back. And many of us, is just to speak on a current an event that's happened recently, is President Gay over at Harvard University, and to see how she's been attacked and ultimately lost her position. And how it was almost so systemic and systematic, and how people were looking back and unpacking that, like, what went wrong, how it went wrong, how fast, how that attack happened. And it almost seemed planned. And I do know there's some complexities, and there are some tough feelings on all sides. But I want to let you know that as I see things moving forward, I see things being pulled back. And one of those things is now DEI is something that is at risk in Los Angeles and all over the nation, because people are attacking it and attacking some progress from the years gone by. And even when you think about the Supreme Court, affirmative action, etc., you can see during our lifetimes, hard fought victories are being rolled back. And we cannot be comfortable even in Los Angeles, because when they're coming for one of us, they're coming for all of us. And we can lose a lot of protections that we've taken for granted in our lifetimes. So I'm inspired, but I'm vigilant. And I'm also sounding the clarion call that everyone needs to do all they can while they can, because America's not playing with us.
I know that's right. Yeah, I like the direction that you took us in, because I was going to ask a question about that later, about some of the things that we're seeing being rolled back. So I'm just going to ask the question now. So nationally, we have seen a rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts within higher education and other arenas. We've seen, the situation that took place with Claudine Gay, and there's so many things that we can name that have become, or I shouldn't even say become a challenge. It's always been a challenge, but is now on the main stage. It's on everyone's radar. It's almost like 2020 was the beginning of putting us back in the 1960s.
Right.
And so, if you could just share with us a little bit about how this moment in history, because it is a historical moment, how this moment in history has impacted your work and what advice you have for how we can respond in a practical way, and how we can support one another materially.
So when you think about, you know, one step forward, two steps back is what some people have, experience in this world. We want to, and I wouldn't say it's a full, it's not that way in my mind. I almost see two steps forward, 1.5 step back. It's like, we do all this work and have these victories, and sometimes we do go further back. Even thinking about the first African American president of the United States of America, and those values, and just the very, very, very next president took things in an entirely different direction. Okay. And just to think, how did that happen? How did you go from here to there? And one thing is, it's abundantly clear that the pendulum swings the other way. So once there is, progress in a certain way, there are going to be forces that are going to double down. And so I want to, again, warn folks that we need to be intentional to do all we can while we can to protect some of these victories that we've experienced. Thinking about the rollback of affirmative action, I find it to be interesting and troubling in so many ways, on so many levels. One thing I just really wanted to say and to highlight is, when African Americans do well, everyone does better. And, just even thinking about our spending power and where we spend dollars when we do get dollars, as consumers, if we have more resources and if we do better, America does better. And I feel that there is, so much creativity and benefits and solutions that we bring to the table. And we can go down the list of, so many inventions that still happen despite us not having a seat at the table. Think about, Charles Drew, and, people are alive today because of things that African Americans in the medical field or engineering fields have done and created. Air conditioning, refrigeration. Some of the benefits that we take for granted, stoplight, you name it. There are a lot of contributions from African Americans that came despite us not really having a seat at the table, or even some of the major academic institutions in the world. For many of our leaders of the days gone by, we thank God for our HBCUs, our historically Black universities, colleges and universities, that allowed folks to have the space to grow and to be a value add to this country. But just imagine how great things could be if we created an opportunity for everyone to have a seat at the table. The other thing that I'd like to express is, with all the talk about African Americans in these institutions of higher learning, one thing that I think we need to just highlight, and I would like a study to be done, maybe even I have to do the study, is to show how African American alums go further, faster with their academic accomplishments. I'm thinking about, like, for example, Barack Obama graduated from an institution of higher learning, Harvard Law, where legacy folks have had an opportunity for years and years and years and years and years to have almost guaranteed admissions at some of these institutions like Harvard Law, right? But when you think about it, I would like a study to be done to actually highlight and show, when you let an African American student in your institutions of higher learning, how far they take the degree, and how much of the accomplishments of African Americans are actually added and used for the annual reports for these institutions of higher learning, or are when you think about rankings, like I'm sure, again, not to pick on Barack Obama again, but I'm sure that there was a legacy student in the same classroom with Michelle or Barack Obama, and their accomplishments and contributions to society weren't as great as the Obamas, for example. And we could go on and on and on of many alums that are, from those spaces, because we're hungry and we get a chance, we go for it. And a lot of times we're first generation students. The other thing that I wanted to, and so we're going to go farther, faster. One thing that I think we should also take a moment to quickly highlight is that going forward, because systemic racism is so real and so prevalent in this country, we don't need race-based admissions really to do what we need to do to support underserved communities, right? Systemic racism has allowed your zip code to determine your life outcomes, how long you live, what kind of life you live. And from whether or not you live in a food desert, or the place has a digital divide, on the wrong side of the digital divide, high crime, low education levels, thinking about rent burdened communities that also are overcrowded. And even the COVID-19 mortality rates in Los Angeles touch these same neighborhoods that have the digital divide and the food deserts and all the other environmental hazards, etc. So I want you all to know that we need to be intentional to know that race-based is not the only way and the only avenue where we can target and support marginalized residents for programs, because systemic racism has been so prevalent. We have a program where we're providing repair dollars, the $10 million for 9 neighborhoods in Los Angeles, and all 9 neighborhoods meet, have high numbers in those areas that I mentioned, like, rent burden, food deserts, etc. And the not surprise for us, is 87% of the people who live in those communities, guess what? People of color. And so I think there is a way all around anything race-based, when you think about zip codes and other factors that indicate that folks are underserved. So race-based admissions or programs aren't the only way to provide support. And of course, with small businesses, it could be a business with a value of less than 10 million, 5 million, 2 million. And a lot of times you'll get women-owned businesses and businesses owned by people of color, again, using the horrors of institutional racism as a benefit for us to be strategic about programming, is how I think people can move forward and serve these communities.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and some of the research that you may do or may assign to your team. I know that you've got lots of people that may be willing to help you with that. We're going to take one more brief moment for commercial break, and we'll hear from Allen University before we jump back in to close out our time together.
Allen University is a small liberal arts institution in Columbia, South Carolina, where we provide small class sizes, dedicated faculty, and a diverse curriculum.
Allen University has provided me with opportunities that will enable me to move confidently toward a fulfilling future.
My time here at Allen University has helped me grow in the field of information technology, and I'm sure it'll help you grow too.
Come to Allen University, where we teach the mind to think, the hands to work, and the heart to love.
Welcome back, family. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. We did not do what we typically do in the beginning of our TCR dialogues, which is invite everyone to share where they're tuning in from. And so, even though it's late, we're going to do it anyway. So, if you have not already and you're listening with us, you tuned in with us from wherever you are in the world, I want you to just drop a note with your name and where you're located in the comment section so that we can see who is tuned in with us and let you know that we're appreciative of you. We're grateful that of all the places in the world you could be right now, you have chosen to share this time and share this space with us. So welcome back, family, and welcome back to you, Attorney Maddox.
Yes, I'm happy to be back with you.
So we're gonna close out with just one more question. I think sometimes we have to add on because of something you say sparks another thought. But I want to hear from you some of the challenges that the city of Los Angeles faces regarding equity. And I think you have touched on that a little bit throughout this conversation. But if you could name concretely some of the challenges that the city of Los Angeles is facing regarding equity, and maybe some of the ways that you all are currently addressing those, or some things that you are still working through addressing.
Right. Well, there are a couple things, and I think it's important to know that we need to make sure that we don't get amnesia. We saw what happened in 2020. A lot of people began to see things they couldn't unsee, thinking about the murder of George Floyd, and, have serious discussions about the inequities, particularly systemic racism that have been problematic for quite some time. And folks in the African American community weren't any strangers to some of the things that were happening. But we as a city need to be intentional to keep the fight and not get weary and well doing. Basically, we need to be intentional to stay the mark when it comes to fighting injustices. And hate and discrimination numbers are soaring all over the country, and for people to try to roll back programs that are creating a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable Los Angeles or nation need to be stopped. And I think it's important to think about programs like participatory budgeting, which has been done in over 1,000 cities all over the world since 1989. So it's not like a new program, but to be intentional, to think about resources getting to communities of need. And I'm very grateful that Mayor Bass and our city council really made sure that this department has $10 million of one-time money, COVID-19 resources from the federal government that we're using to give to the communities that happen to have high COVID mortality numbers, but also other inequities like environmental racism, again, food deserts, the digital divide, and other wrongs that happen in communities. The work that I think needs to come is, I think that residents need to also, continue to step up and to make demands from local government on what they need. I can't, do things on my own here and, deliver for the residents of Los Angeles without support from the community. So for our faith-based institutions, you need to continue, like my beloved First AME Church, to continue to use your platform to speak truth to power on what residents need. And the members of our faith-based institution know early and often the needs and the hurts and the harms impacting our communities, and they need to let that be known in these spaces.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. As we welcome our chief editor back for a closing word, I want to say a hearty thank you to you, Attorney Maddox, for joining us for this conversation. I also just want to ask if there is a way for folk to follow your work and join in on your efforts, if there's a website that people can follow you on, or some social media handles that people can get connected with you on.
Yes. So you can reach us at LA Civil Rights We're at LA Civil Rights on all social platforms. You can also follow us by signing up for our newsletter. You can go to laisforeveryone.com. And laforeveryone.com will give you an opportunity to sign up for our newsletter that comes out every other week, so you can follow us that way and get something on your inbox to learn about our organization. And basically, favor and doors opening for me created the opportunity. Right before a miracle happens, people say, I'm not supposed to do this, but or we don't normally do this. And that's what happened to me at Cal State LA when I showed up with 2 suitcases, everything I own, no money, no place to live. Right. And I think it's important to know that, the investment of the community, investment of the family of faith, particularly thinking about Pastor Boyd's previous leadership and Pastor Reverend Shaw. Of course, we have Rob and Ann Shaw as our new leaders of First AME. Calling us to be first to serve is what we do. And this is my version of being first to serve with the LA Civil Rights Department to lift a better Los Angeles. And I'm just, giving back what I have received from the body of Christ in general, but particularly my First AME family. And of course, my beloved husband of 21 years.
Thank you. John?
And my voice has come back, so I'm glad it's come back. We, returning Maddox, when I met you at the planning meeting, I was impressed with your energy, and you literally lit up the whole room. And Reverend Boyd wanted to make sure that I got to see you before he left. He said, you have to speak to Attorney Maddox, you have to get to know her, and you have to make sure the connection knows what she does. So we are indeed honored that you took time to sit with us. And Reverend Brooks, and I want to bring Reverend Brooks back on just to make sure that we give her credit for thank you for doing this interview. And also just to what you brought out in that last moment about the fact that the AME Church speaks truth to power. And I'm glad that you said that, because one of the reasons that we wanted the church to hear you from where you sit running LA Civil Rights Department, let's take a moment and think about the fact of where LA has been, what the AME Church has meant to LA. When you think about a Chip Murray, when you think about a Bishop Brookins, when you think about a Biddy Mason, when you think about what Fame has done for LA and how Fame brought you to Fame and what you're doing. And it's funny, like we always wonder, how do we get AMEs? We get AMEs by doing our job. And you are a testament to that.
Yes.
And we attracted you to us because of who we were. And I want people to hear again that you said the best thing that AMEs can do is speak truth to power. You may not be in Los Angeles. You may be in a city where you're the only one speaking, but we have to speak. And so, Ms. Maddox, thank you for, you're not in the pulpit, you're in the pew, but your voice rings out to us. So thank you for being here today. Thank you, Reverend Brooks, for giving my voice a rest, for allowing us to do this job. And I'm sure this interview will be a blessing to many people. And we look forward again to hearing and seeing more of your work. And thank you again, Ms. Maddox. We're going to post this one more time. And do you have any final words before we go?
Yes, I sign off every newsletter, every meeting by saying these words, and I think they're important to share it today. Think about you, Dr. John, thinking about Reverend Brooks. I sign off by saying these words: keep the faith and keep the fight.
Amen. Well, we will see you all next time on the Christian Recorder Dialogues. Be blessed.
Peace, everyone.
Bye now.